Welcome back to our flower color guide painting series. We are going to be painting red flowers this week. And today we are going to be painting the Parrot tulips. Now these are such fun flowers. They've got so much texture in their petals, and I want us to capture all of that using brush strokes. Let's jump into today's tutorial. Here's a look at some of the supplies that I'll be using. In day 1, we did the spray carnations. If you have missed that video, don't forget to go and check it out. We're going to be adding yet another red flower to this paint. This one here is a pretty fun one. Let's try and capture some of these beautiful shapes as well as long leaves. Now we're going to be continuing on the theme painting red. So I'm going to put the tulips kind of falling in this direction or even this direction, I don't know. We'll see how things go and flow. I'm using my happy trusty flat brush for this, and we're gonna keep things pretty loose. So let's start with a nice light wash of red. The thing about painting red when you are having the same color throughout your painting is that you really want to think about the reds that you have in your palette. Of course, everyone has got a different range of reds, and we also are leaning into specific types of reds that we love. Sometimes it could be a red that is of cooler temperature, and sometimes it could be a red that's of warmer temperature. Now, the first flower that I painted was actually a red that was a lot warmer in temperature, so that one was really more of a pyro red, and it leans towards the yellow-orange spectrum. On the other hand, with the tulips right now, I'm painting it with a cooler red. I started off making some marks with the side of my brush, and what I'm trying to capture right now is really a cone shape because this is a side-facing flower. So I want to kind of create that kind of teardrop looking shape, and next, I'm going to be trying to do the same with the second flower. And the fun thing about the second flower is that there is a petal that is peeking out. And if you look at the reference photo, you can see that it's kind of coming outwards, and I'm going to try and capture that as well. The Parrot tulip has got these beautiful, almost feather-like petals, and you want to capture that edge, which is why I use the flat brush to give it that jagged looking edge. I'm also varying the color value, and when you vary the color value, it enhances and creates so much more depth as well. Now before I paint my third flower, I thought I should paint the stem so that I know where exactly I want to place my third flower. And I'm using a much warmer green here. This green is almost like a green gold, sap green kind of green. And the reason why I'm using this much more warm green is that I find that it would be such a great complement to the spray carnation flowers. If you have been watching my videos, you would know that this is my favorite part where I'm actually adding details to the painting, because I feel like this is where you get a chance to really breathe in life into your painting. I'm trying to mimic some of those really nice feathery type of edges when it comes to the Parrot tulip. So you can see that I'm going in with a much thicker pigment using my small round brush to kind of create these tiny little dabbing strokes, and I am adding them in so that it looks as though the petals have these really nice furry kind of feeling, and that's me adding texture to the painting. Now I would welcome you to try out dry brush because that's going to give your painting even more texture. That petal in the front came out really light, so what I'm doing is I'm adding in a little bit more color so that you can actually see where the center of that petal is. When it comes to the petals that are at the back, because they are so much darker in saturation, you want to also use a much darker red to create your shadows. And I don't add black to any of my paints. What I do to create a darker color is to find its complementary color. And for red, the complementary color is green. So adding a little bit of that kind of mutes down that red and you get a really nice Indian red instead. Understanding your color mixing, especially when you're going to be painting in one color, is so important because its complementaries as well as the way in which colors work together plays such an important role, especially if you want to bring life to your painting. I offer a series of workshops that all go into specific skills, and one of them that I really love is called From Flat to Fabulous. I put down the link and details of these workshops in the description below, so feel free to check them out because From Flat to Fabulous is all about learning how to paint in one color, which is exactly what we're doing right now if you're thinking about it, and in this case we are using red. Now I'm going to attempt to paint that third flower, and you can see how I'm basically interpreting some of the shapes from the reference photo. So the nice thing is that I've got my flower color guide book that is opened up on the top left hand side, so you can see that what I'm trying to capture is really just the entire big shape. And subsequently, I'm also going to be varying the color values as well. I'm using my 1/2 inch stroke brush over here. This is a brush from Princeton Velvet Touch. It's really one of my favorite brushes to use when I'm painting loose florals. I'm also lifting paint here right now because I noticed that there is a petal that is sitting in the front of that very flower, and I want to keep in mind that that space needs to be more or less lighter in color value. And this is where, if you are using a paint that is non-staining, it's a lot easier to lift. However, sometimes if you're using watercolor inks and it's a lot more staining, this is where lifting can be pretty tricky. Depending on which stage your paper is drying. Right now my paper is pretty just damp, so I'm going in adding some of my shadows, and when it's damp, the nice thing is that you get some really nice soft bleeds instead of when it's wet. So think about the stage in which your paper is drying because that's going to influence the type of effects that you get on your painting. When I first started doing layering, I have to say that it was a scary skill that I was trying to develop. And it's scary because sometimes when we add layers, we are afraid that maybe we shouldn't have added that and then we can't remove it, or we feel like we want to overwork that very part, maybe because we feel like that detail should be looking a certain way, and this is when our brush keeps going over that same spot over and over again and we could overwork it. I find that when it comes to layering, less is more, and quite often, as much as you can, squint your eyes when you are putting in your shadows because that's going to help you to just find the darker spots in that flower instead of picking up every single detail. The fun thing about these leaves is that they are curved and they show a lot more movement. Check out how I'm using my flat brush to just move over from one side of the stems to the next side, and I'm using a darker color so you can see those light stems really stand out and pop. This is me fussing over my Parrot tulip flowers, and I'm really being mindful that I want that center to kind of stand out, which is why I'm adding in a lot more darker tones in there. Now, I want to share with you something that I learned about layering. If you use a lot of small dabbing brush strokes and you keep going in over and over again that same area, it's going to create a lot of overwork. So I would encourage you to let parts of that painting dry and go back in if you find that you still need to add or dab certain areas, so that you reduce the amount of overworking, because overworking tends to happen when your paper is still damp in that area. Now we're coming to the end of this painting. I had so much fun growing these tulips together with you, and this being my first time painting the Parrot tulips, it was really fun taking up that challenge, and I'm so glad that I get to share the process with you. I hope that you enjoyed this painting, and hopefully you will get to come in and tune in where I start to add in yet another flower, the red cosmos, now at the back somewhere, and you can see that already this painting looks and feels quite crowded, so we're going to have to figure out how our placement of our red cosmos are going to be in the next video. Remember to hit the subscribe button and the bell button so that you get notified for the next video. I can't wait to see you then.